Welcome to True Health Tuesday, and the truth will set you free. Okay, today it's like part 2 of thyroid. Last week, me and Dr. Tony were going over it. I just wanted to go over a little bit more of the neurology behind the thyroid, because the thyroid is not in an isolated environment. The second half we're going to be talking about is going to be pretty wild, okay? In this first part, Michael J. Sutton, I totally recommend you looking at this guy. Michael J. Sutton wrote an article called The Suffering of the Innocent. Okay, that's all I can say in this portion. And all those who are supporting the Dr. B VIP, God bless you, thank you. Your help is appreciated because since we've been demonetized and shadow banned, it's tougher. And Extreme Health Academy, I'm going to be on there this Sunday doing another 2-hour webinar answering question and answers. Because why? What are you guys doing on a Sunday? Okay, I know. Now, without stress, you die. If you don't deal with stress correctly, you die. Okay, so you got to figure, and anytime you're with stress, you've got to, like if you don't use this arm, what happens? It atrophies, the body will absorb the nutrients, and it'll fall off. So you need stress. If you're not handling that stress correctly, then your body doesn't function well. And we're talking about the thyroid, okay? And this is huge because it's absolutely, completely ignorant, okay, to have a profession that isolates the thyroid out, okay, and doesn't look at any other factor, okay? That just doesn't make any sense at all. But there's only 3 stressors: physical, chemical, emotional. No, it's not the husband. Physical, chemical, emotional, okay? And what these stressors do, they activate the automatic nervous system. And this is why 90% of the nerves that come off the spine, there's no pain fibers. And your body responds. It can only be in 2 modes. It's never off. Your body's never static. You're either tearing tissue down or building it. When you're tearing it down, you're in survival mode. You're building it, you're in thriving mode. And you need a balance of these systems. One part keeps you alive under stress. The other part regenerates tissue. And you can see when you're in this fight or flight state, okay, what happens? Heart rate goes up, blood sugar goes up, cholesterol goes up. And I know what you're thinking. Well, my brother has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and type 2 diabetes. No, he doesn't. Nobody has that stuff. They're under stress. Now, the tough part is when people come in. I just had a gal today. Oh, my blood pressure's high. And I said, no, it's responding correctly based on your environment. And we're going to find out why your body's responding that way. And she said, but it's 160 over 80. And I said, yeah, that's a difference of 80, the pulse pressure. It should be 40 to 60. So it means your blood's not efficient. What do you mean my blood's not efficient? Okay, it means that it's not holding oxygen really well, or there's some other type of stress factor. Okay, you know, I know. I'm starting to lose it the older I get. I just want to say, look, mellow out, smoke some weed, you're going to be okay. Okay, but there's a problem. So your blood pressure, like if I'm standing on your foot, does your blood pressure go up? If anybody has a question on that, I'm going to crush your foot with your toe with a hammer, okay? What happens? Blood pressure goes up. Okay, that's normal. Now, do you have a disease? No, you have an adaptation to a physical stressor of somebody hitting you in the toe with a hammer, okay? That's not a disease. Now, so you live your life through your nervous system, so you have this constant balance between sympathetic fight or flight and parasympathetic rest and digest. And then your metabolism is super important. I mean, you've got a balance between the thyroid and adrenals. Because when you're running away from a tiger, you don't want to be producing sexual hormones. Okay, you just want to survive. You're not thinking about procreating. So this balance is huge. Now, we got to look at the internal structures, okay, of how the brain perceives stress. So like if you're on a roller coaster, okay, and I once dated this person who's still a really good friend. She loved roller coasters. I think they're insane. Okay, I've gone skydiving, I'm a certified scuba diver, okay, I'm rock climbing, motorcycles, I'm okay with all of that stuff. But to be in one of those things that go up and down, that's insane. So if you're in a scared situation, okay, you're on a roller coaster or you're doing something that you don't like, that is sensed by the brain, okay, through the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus is unique. It's got 1 foot in the nervous system, 1 foot in the endocrine system. So it's going to balance how the thyroid works. It's going to balance how the pituitary works. It's going to balance how the adrenals work. Okay, so this is hugely important. Now, the cerebellum also gets its input from the spine. So the spine, when you're looking at that central nervous system, communicates through these two things. Now, the cerebellum controls the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe is anxiety, stress, depression, impulse control. So everyone you've ever known with attention deficit disorder, they don't have it. They got frontal lobe adaptation. And in fact, when I get kids with ADD or ADHD, I'll ask them, I say, do you have any trouble playing video games? What do you think of the parents? You know, no, buddy, I could play it for hours. So they don't have a deficit of attention. Okay? They have an impulse control issue. And then that goes to being in a stressed state. What does that do to gut function? It shuts it down. And that's where neurotransmitters are. That's where the immune system is. Okay, and then that goes into, if you're in a chronic state, you're just going to go into survival mode. So these are all intelligent adaptations to stress. So then you have this axis, this flow. You get this environmental stimulus going up to the hypothalamus. Now, is it perception? Could be. Could it be information from and up the spine? Absolutely. Could be an altered information from the spine. Could it be a trauma that you had years ago? Absolutely. And all this stuff stimulates up there. Now, the hypothalamus is going to tell the pituitary what to produce. Now, should it produce, are you in a stress state? So the thyroid is going to be suppressed and the adrenals are going to be up? Are you in a relaxed state or parasympathetic where the thyroid's going to be up and the adrenals are going to be down? So it's this axis, it's this feedback loop. Now, the problem is a lot of endocrinologists don't do any detective work. And it's probably a piss poor education because they're trained by the pharmaceutical industry where they're not going to do any detective work. You know, they'll just say, oh, you know, I can see on your history here that your sister and mom both have a low functioning thyroid. You must have a low functioning thyroid too. You're fatigued or anything else? Okay, good. Here's some, we're going to try you on this T4, this Synthroid or levoxythyrene. Do you see how crazy that is? Okay, when they're not looking at at why it's there. And this, if you're currently taking medications like that, ask your doctor why. And if they say hereditary, slap him. Okay, because this is ridiculous. I mean, if you had a herd of water buffaloes and you had 5% with thyroid issues, would you say, no problem, I got a whole bag of Synthroid here. They'll be just fine. You know, no, that would be ridiculous. You'd find out what they're eating, what stress they're under, what kind of exposure, because water buffalo aren't supposed to have thyroid issues. But humans, since we're living in the government controlled by the pharmaceutical industry, you're told that you have to have pharmaceuticals. Okay, so look at this feedback loop as important. Now, so we're looking at T4, this is what the hypothalamus is sensing. The thyroid produces T2, T3, T4, calcitonin, it produces all this stuff, okay? Now, but that T4 is converted, okay, into T3, which is a lot more powerful. Now, the reason I want you to think about this, because it's not just the thyroid. This requires more detective work. So the T4, okay, you got a 20-to-1 ratio. So there's a bunch more T4 than T3. But T3, that T4 gets converted to T3 in the liver, intestines, kidney, and lungs. So now think of this. If you're having a low functioning thyroid, and one of the main things that they're only looking for is the pituitary up here spits out thyroid stimulating hormone, and that's supposed to, yeah, you're right, stimulate the thyroid. I know, you got to figure it's like, okay, but then that means the thyroid is supposed to produce these in T3, T4. And so what they'll look at is they'll look at if there's a low T3, T4 and a high TSH, it means the pituitary is screaming down to the thyroid and the thyroid's not doing it, so it's not functioning well, it's a hypo. Okay, or if there's very little TSH and there's super high T3, T4, it's a hyperthyroid. So they're basically looking at this and then they're giving a medication to alter it. They're not looking at reasons why. Now, knowing that this conversion, T4 to T3, confers in the liver. What if somebody is drinking a lot of, just had a patient today, type 2 diabetes. Is type 2 diabetes a disease or an adaptation to a toxic poisoning of the environment? It's a poisoning. So they drink a lot of soda. What's soda made of? Okay, and I'm talking Coca-Cola, Mountain Dew, whatever the heck it is. But genetically modified high fructose corn syrup, that's the leading cause of fatty liver disease. When I was a kid, it was alcohol. Now it's soda. Okay, so if somebody's drinking a lot of high fructose corn syrup, okay, genetically modified, that's going to damage their gut and lead to liver disorders. So is that going to decrease the conversion of it? Yeah, absolutely. Intestinal tract, what if somebody is eating commercially produced bread? Okay, full of bromine or full of glyphosates or this, that's going to damage the endothelial lining of the intestinal tract and literally create holes. So that's going to be a conversion issue. What if they're in a stressed state? That's going to thicken blood. That's going to also damage the kidneys. Or if they've had certain medical procedures that can damage the blood. What if the lungs aren't working correctly? Now, you've got a nerve, C3, C4, C5 in the neck that supplies the diaphragm. Okay, you also have the cardiac and respiratory center up here. So what if you've had a neck issue, from high school or something, okay? So see the detective work? It's not just, TSH is high and this is low. You have a low functioning thyroid. Why? Don't ask me why. It must run in your family. Here's some drugs. It's insane. And I'll get people that have been on these drugs for 20 years, 30 years. And I'll say, did you ever have your thyroid operated on? No. How's your energy level? Crap. Okay, so let's find out the solution. Now, the thing that balances, okay, the thyroid is the adrenals. Now, when the thyroid is low functioning, the adrenals produce their stress hormones, and cortisol is amazing in short term, amazing. Okay, it balances out immune system, regulates blood pressure. It's great for one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories out there. Now, it's interesting because the body makes cortisol and makes epinephrine and norepinephrine, the adrenalins, okay, out of cholesterol. So think of this, those adrenal glands, they're the pharmacy of the body. They produce every glucocorticosteroid, mineralocorticosteroid, and sex hormone, but they need the raw material of cholesterol. So now let's say somebody's got a low, high TSH, low T3, T4, okay? Well, you have a low functioning thyroid. Or let's say they have elevations in cortisol. Okay, that means there's some kind of tissue damage or inflammatory process going on. Or there could be a stress state. Now, if somebody has weight in the belly, seat, and thighs, that's cortisol-mediated metabolic state. That's chronic stress. These are people that cannot diet this stuff away. They're the ones that say, look, I'm on a 500 calorie a day diet. I'm gnawing my arm, but they can't lose a weight. Because this is where that cortisol puts it. Thinning of the arms, okay? Weight in the belly, seat, and thighs. I mean, horrible. Moon face, skin's bad. Small, spindly arms, okay? So let's look at this cortisol thyroid balance. Now, we touched on this a little bit, but it's going to sound too simple because if you have a low functioning thyroid or a high functioning thyroid or adrenal fatigue or high blood pressure or elevations in cholesterol, your body is responding correctly based on the stimulus. There's nothing wrong with it. It's working correctly. Now, there could be nutrient deficiencies causing it to elevate. There could be a poor blood production, or the blood cells could start to be clumping together because of low stomach acid. There's going to be a reason. But if the doctor isn't a good detective to find out, okay, why, then you're going to be on drugs. And the average person over 60 is taking 12 prescriptions. Okay, I'm over 60. I'm taking none, so somebody's making it up for me. Okay, I know. No, I'm not going to do my part. Okay, so what raises cortisol? Now remember, this is a stress hormone. What raises it? Well, one, low thyroid function. Inflammation, stress, tissue damage, injections, and toxic food. Why? Because toxic food is dangerous. Injections create inflammation. Tissue damage, that means some kind of problem. Now, what lowers cortisol? Well, a healthy thyroid. So that sounds kind of stupid. What raises it? A low-functioning thyroid. What lowers it? A healthy thyroid. Vegetables and water. What? You mean you're getting the raw materials, food that you can take in and break down, and healthy amounts of water? That's okay. Now the vegetables, I'm not talking genetically modified, sprayed with glyphosates, covered in plastic, and then colorized and put on a shelf so it looks good. I'm talking organic stuff that bacteria eat. Like I cooked up some tomatoes the other day that had big old huge wormholes. No, I got them from my garden. I thought, man, if those worms like it, I gotta like it. It's gonna be good. I get a carrot and it's gonna have some weird stuff in there. I cut off where the potato bugs were eating the purple potatoes I just grew. Okay, so it's okay. This is called normal. People have lived like this for forever. So what lowers the thyroid? So it's really the thyroid, estrogens. Okay, this means birth control. Could that be one of the contributing factors that women are diagnosed with low functioning birth? Or since most pesticides are estrogen based, okay, that could be a contributing factor. High cortisol, remember that's a stress hormones. Liver toxicity, could this be high fructose corn syrup, or somebody has maybe taken an Advil or a Tylenol, which is one of the leading causes of liver damage. Fluoride, okay, and you may say, well, I don't use any fluoride toothpaste. If you got a manufacturing plant over there manufacturing soda or mouthwash or whatever the heck they're manufacturing, and they're utilizing the fluoridated water that our insane government uses, yeah, that's damaging. Pesticides, estrogen-based, stress, toxic food, medications, injection. And all medications damage mitochondria, they damage the intestinal tract. But remember, we're living in a country that is run by the pharmaceutical industry. This is the most unique country in the world. The government's controlled, the media's controlled, the education is controlled, and children are raised to think that this is normal. So we're at the crossroads. Okay, we have the allopathetic model where one size fits all. If 20 people in this room have high blood pressure, guess what? They are all going to start them on a diuretic, then a beta blocker, then an ACE inhibitor. Am I going to find out what problem it is? Nope, it's hereditary. In fact, what's the leading cause of high blood pressure? It's unknown. Doesn't matter, we know the solution. It's going to be a drug. So injections, yeah, one injection for everybody. Why not? Doesn't matter your history or anything else. What could possibly go wrong? It's safe and effective. And no individuality. So if you got 10 people with fibromyalgia diagnosis, they all get the same therapy. Are you okay with that? Does that seem like it's working really well? Knowing that 1 in 2, 54% of our children have a chronic illness or disease they'll never recover from. 60% of adults in this country have a chronic illness or disease they'll never recover from. 40% have more than one. So this is the sickest animal species on the planet following this allopathic model. Allopathic. So it's time to change. Now imagine if that you went to the doctor and they said, look, you're nutrient deficient in these, you need some supportive therapies like some juicing, some blending, we need to have you exercise. You know when they say when diet and exercise don't work? Bull, it always works. Just ask anybody who's taken a bunch of drugs. Okay, if you're left on a deserted island, you only had fresh fruit, fresh fish, fresh water, and fresh vegetables. You had no access to pharmaceuticals. Would you get healthier or sicker? Healthier. Everybody says healthier. And I've asked people, the worst one is 32 prescriptions. They say healthier. And if they have damage to the brain, they'll say, well, I don't know. And I'll put them on the spot. I say, well, you don't know, then keep taking the drugs. You tell me what you think you know now. Well, I guess I'd be better. Guess? Are you guessing your life depends on this? Okay, I'd get better. Yes, I beat people up. Okay, but only out of love. Okay, so would you. You want somebody wishy-washy when their life is on the line? No. You call them out, by God. Okay, and individualized therapy. 10 people with fibromyalgia, 10 people with ulcerative colitis. Pick the disease. Should they be treated as individuals and find out their physical, chemical, emotional stress? Of course. 10 people with a low-functioning thyroid. Do you think, oh, no problem. We only have one therapy. It's going to be levoxythyrine. Mind-blowing. So these diseases up here are not diseases. They're adaptations to stress. Blood pressure, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, high cholesterol, breast cancer, all of these things, they're adaptations. What does breast cancer look like outside of the body? Or is it really an adaptation to toxicity and deficiency? Difficult menstrual cycles. Do you need some birth control pills to control it, which are estrogens, which can negatively affect the thyroid? Or could there be some other thing that's causing it? You know, physical, chemical, emotional stress. So these are the stressors you're under. How do you measure it? Heart rate variability. Great way to measure it. We've got the sympathetic and parasympathetic. You're looking at a sympathetic dominant on the left. You're looking at normal in the center. You're looking at parasympathetic dominant on the right. Okay, that's it. The body is in a stress state. And think of this. This is primal. This is primal. So when you're in this, okay, when you're in that sympathetic or parasympathetic dominant state, you're trying to run away from danger, okay, and you're just trying to survive. Now, how long can you stay in that state? Not that long. Of course, if you are, here's a patient, 45 years old, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and thyroid issue. Do you think he has any one of those? Not at all. His body is correctly adapting to stress. High blood pressure? No, that's a stress response. Type 2 diabetes? That's a blood poisoning. Okay, thyroid issues, unless you've been irradiated or unless you're living in the goiter belt where the Great Lakes are and you're not getting any iodine, okay, he is responding to stress correctly. Okay, does that make sense? When we look at this gal, 83 years old, numb hands, anxiety, fatigue, and high blood pressure. Okay, she is in a sympathetic dominant state. Numb hands, does that mean that the nerves that supply it aren't working? Numbness, tingling, sharp, shooting, electrical, burning, those are all nerve pinch pains. Does that mean that she has diabetic neuropathy? Maybe, highly doubtful. Okay, she more than likely has a pinched nerve in the neck. Anxiety, that means abnormal stimulation to the cerebellum and the frontal lobe dysfunction, or it could mean a gut disorder where the neurotransmitters are. Fatigue, yeah, how do you think her sleep patterns are? Pick a relative you don't like and give them crappy sleep. What's going to happen? The thyroid's going to be low, the adrenals are going to be high, they're going to have bowel disorders, they're going to have all these stuff. This is why we talk about sleep pattern changes and nutrition changes. Psychobiotics and manipulation of the gut bacteria. It turns out that if you have a healthy gut flora, you have healthy neurotransmitter production. But if you have an unhealthy gut flora, and this means that you're having commercially produced bread is loaded with glyphosate, that's an antibiotic. You're going to have altered brain function. If you have any standard antibiotics, or you have toxic food, you have any type of genetically modified vegetables, that's going to damage the gut flora. Forget antibiotics, forget every medication. This means Advil, Motrin, Aleve, the Tylenol PM that you take for chemically induced sleep because the doctor recommended it. Okay, I know they're going to play this back in 50 years and go, no way, this has got to be a Saturday Night Live episode. There's no society that could live like that. No, we do. So now a leaky gut, this is called increased intestinal permeability for those doctors that are covering their ears right now saying, no, it doesn't exist. No, it does. Increased intestinal permeability, you damage the endothelial lining, it's going to cause proteins that are untempered by digestion to get in the system. This is why when you see Hashimoto's is not a hyper or hypo, it's both. Okay, why does it go up and down? Because if you get proteins that aren't tempered by digestion floating around in the bloodstream, the immune system responds like, holy moly, proteins floating around is dangerous. So if you get gluten and casein proteins floating in the bloodstream, the body's going to build antibodies towards that, and those can slow down the thyroid. So when you have a bunch of the proteins floating in there, there's going to be a bunch of the antibody production, and then the thyroid's going to be low. You don't eat the gluten and caseins, then that antibody production is going to be down, and then the thyroid's going to bounce back. Okay, then it's going to be hyper. So it's both. How do you fix Hashimoto's? Fix the gut, and then reduce the stress. And I mean, it just seems like logical. And I figure in the 1800s, Um, People are using thyroid to slow, or fluoride to slow down the thyroid. And that was going on until the 70s. And you could say, look, I don't use that type of toothpaste. Any manufacturing plant utilizing the fluoridated water that our government says it's safe. Luckily now I think they're going to be removing it because enough people are saying, look, this is insane. But this has been going on for forever. I mean, here, this guy, okay, Dean Burke. In point of fact, fluoride causes more human cancer death and causes it faster than any other chemical. That's 1976. Okay, and we're looking at a number of different manufacturing that has this in there. Now fluoride, it's everywhere. Iodine is super important, but a lot of doctors, they're not taught nutrition, so they don't know the value of iodine. But like in the periodic table of elements, iodine is a halide, just like chlorine and fluorine and bromine. So it's similar in structure. Okay, so if your thyroid is iodine deficient, like you're not eating shellfish, you're not eating seaweed, you're Lugo's iodine deficient. Okay, so but you shower in chlorine. Okay, you drink the soda that's made with fluoridated water. You eat the commercial bread that's produced in bromine. Okay, your thyroid's going to say, what the heck is this? I don't know what to do with it, so I'm going to make a nodule out of it. Where do you think thyroid's nodules come from? Demons, or does your body form them? Your body forms them. It's smart. The body doesn't do anything stupid. Even shutting blood supply off to an extremity to maintain core temperature. Okay, those are all intelligent responses. Now this, Dr. Brownstein, I totally recommend, if you have a doctor that doesn't understand iodine, if you don't understand iodine, and he's one of the censor doctors, because they're censoring anyone that's speaking against the narrative, check it out. Okay, just read about it. Look at the data. Look at the research. Okay, so we're looking at nutrient deficient. We're looking at chronic stress. Emotions. Emotions. Anytime you're upset, okay, guess what happens? Adrenals start to fire, thyroid becomes low. So physical, chemical, emotional stress. I love this. Conceptualize a healthy attitude towards oneself. Self-compassion. Now, if you're realizing, now let's say you've gone through 3 years of some of the most intense propaganda campaigns the world ever seen. Okay, and you were complying, and you were even forcing people to comply with stuff that they didn't like. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why we have this one, The Suffering of the Innocent. It's by Michael J. Sutton. It's a brilliant article. So let's say you have some guilt there. Self-forgiveness, self-acceptance. I don't know if I'm the only one that's ever made a mistake. Okay. Okay, good. 2 of us are in here. 3. Okay. I think you're just saying that. Yeah, mine was 1987. So good. You know, we'll get together. But self-forgiveness and realizing that everybody is in the same boat we are. You know, just love yourself, love others. But the challenge is, and this is huge, people have a real black and white attitude. You know, you're wearing this or you're not wearing this. You know, you are this or you're not this. You know, the world isn't like that. There's always varying shades. So like if you imagine all good, all pure, all amazing, okay, aside from God, there's nothing like that. Okay, maybe my truck. Okay. But on the other side, pure evil, pure bad, pure everything. And when you look at this, and you look at history, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Gulag Diaries, Viktor Frankl, the Man's Search for Meaning. You look at people who have been in horrible, horrible, horrible circumstances, and they said there's no evil people. Okay, everybody has that good and bad inside of them. So even, you know, as whatever you want to visualize is really bad, it's not. There's always a balance of this. And so if you look at life like a top that spins so you can see both sides at the same time, you're going to have a better balance with the world. Okay, so if you think our government is all bad and everything else, no, it's a transition. Spin that top. So how to thrive. Have a balanced view of events, prepare in advance for food, for food, water, health skills, and learn. And this is one of the reasons we want to keep these classes going. Take charge of your own mental status. Who is in charge of your brain? Only you. Okay, and you decide what goes into it. Okay, and I totally do not recommend commercially produced news before bed. If you want to turn into a zombie, that's a good thing. Okay, take charge of your own health. Do not abdicate authority over to a person that is only trained in pharmaceuticals, that is delusional, that think that that's the only avenue. And they're not appreciating that your body is built in the image likeness of God and you're more energy than matter. Okay, and when the doctor comes up, if you're going to one of those, okay, ask why. Why do I have this? If he doesn't have an answer, you wouldn't let him work on your car. I don't know why your engine light's on, but I have a bunch of therapies I want to try. Check, please. I want to take my car to somebody else. You would do that with your car, do that with your body. Once these guys start understanding that they have to learn how the system works, okay, then they're going to get better at it. Make decisions based on long-term consequences. Yeah, I just want to get out of pain, so I want to take those opioids, or I just want to have that muscle relaxant, or I just want to do this. No, there's better things that you can do if you're going for the solution. Okay, I mean, it's hard, okay, to get up in the morning and do push-ups and sit-ups. It sucks. I do it every morning. But what's the advantage of doing, 75 sit-ups and 25 push-ups in a year, 5 years, 20 years? God, when I'm 83 in 20 years, I'll still be good and strong. I'll be able to still work. So now's the time. And we always put up the 5 keys: proper nerve supply, exercise, nutrition, prayer, meditation, and sufficient rest. Can you see the balance of this? Nobody has a low-functioning thyroid. Their body's responding correctly. It could be nutrient deficiencies. You could be iodine deficient. You could have nuclear waste. You could be exposed to Fukushima. There could be something, but find the freaking problem. And if somebody says it's hereditary, pepper spray them. Well, I mean, not directly, but, it's theoretically. Okay. Now, we're going to get into a dangerous area. This is because we are in a censorship area, and since we used to have certain rights that were endowed by our creator or our government? No, our creator, okay? And they couldn't be alienated by man. Freedom of speech was one of them. Okay, so now we're going to get into a platform where I can speak freely without worried about being censored. So YouTube and Facebook, I'll see you guys next week. God bless you.